Ever record an ambient jam that sounded great in the moment, but then you listen back to it later and realize it sounds a little thin? You're definitely not the only one. Hey, it's Marcus from Holosuite. This video is for ambient artists that like to record live, one-take performances down to stereo. I see you, modular people. You've nailed that perfect take, everything sounds fantastic when you're recording it, but then you listen back against some of your favorite releases and realize that the low end just doesn't hold up. So what do? Sure, you could just try recording a whole new bass layer, but then you've got to chase the tone, get the notes right, make sure it fits in with the original recording, or you can get a little bit creative. There's a simple way to make your mix feel heavier without recording anything new. Watch on, I'll explain how this works and also give you some tips on what to watch out for to make sure that it fits in nicely with your original track. So today I'm working with a track from Eternatease called Unit 3K25, and I'll put a link in the description for this track in case you'd like to hear the full thing. Please do go and support the artist. So let's have a quick listen to it. It's got this kind of dream punk, kind of Thief soundtrack vibe. I really like what they did with the drums. There's a lot happening. But the one thing I did notice is that if you look, there's quite a steep roll-off after about 100 hertz. There's quite a steep roll-off after about 100 hertz, and it feels like it could do with a bit more guts in the bass end. So because I don't have access to the original track, I am just going to work with this stereo track, and what I would do is make a copy. And on this copy, I'm going to pitch it down by an octave. And then I'll just set up the warp so that it ends up playing at the same speed. That'll do roughly. So let's have a listen to the copy. Now it's getting quite vaporwavy here. But it's basically the same as this one. Just an octave down. And if we look at that in our plugin here, suddenly we've got lots of energy at 50 hertz. Because we've gone down an octave, that's half of 100 hertz, and that's 50 hertz. So there's our bass. Now there are a couple of things we need to do here. Obviously, if we play this all together, sounds a little bit too intense. If I turn it off, not so bad. Turn it on. Right, too much bass. So let's turn it down to start with. Now if I turn it off and then turn it back on, it's a bit more subtle. And we can tweak that as much as we like. And the next thing we probably should do to avoid causing too much phasing or possible masking, because it's the same track being played over again, we should add some filters. So I'm going to add to my bass, I'm going to add a low pass filter. I'm going to make it pretty gentle. So I'm going to go with 12 dB per octave. And then I'm going to filter it down to about here. I might actually make it a bit tighter. And the idea is because this original track was only playing down to roughly about 100 hertz, we want to make sure that that bass doesn't really interfere with that, because otherwise we're going to get doubling of those frequencies, which is where you end up with phase problems. So I've put my low pass filter on at roughly 100 hertz here. And then I'm going to go to my original track and I'm going to add a high pass filter that does the opposite of the bass line. So let's have a look. That's right. Really bassy bit. Yeah, I think I will go with 24 dB. and just adjust to taste until it sounds right. And we can double check that we're not causing any problems by using a phase correlometer. So this is the Voxengo correlometer. It'll tell us the phase relationship for all of the frequencies across the whole spectrum. So we're looking at around 100 Hertz to see if this causes any problems. Let's put this on. All right, we're clear. A little bit happening over here, but that should be okay. Great. The next thing we want to do is, because this is quite rumbly, if I just play this in solo, you can see it's kind of bouncing around everywhere. I'm just going to remove all the dynamics from that bass so that it sits quite quietly and it doesn't kind of interfere too much more. We just want it to support this original track. We don't want it to kind of take it over. So I'm just going to add a compressor, or you can add a limiter as well if you like. I might actually do the limiter. And the reason is we want this to be really aggressive. We want all the dynamics to be absolutely squished. All right, we're getting negative 6.75 dBs down here. I'm pretty sure that we're not going to get much in the way of dynamics at this point. There we go, turn it down just a little bit more. Now if I turn it off, a bit thinner, turn it on, a bit more guts. And you can keep tweaking this way. Just once again, make sure that you're looking out for phase issues, that you're keeping an ear out for things like masking. Make sure that what you're doing is supporting the track, but it's not taking away from it. So how simple was that? This is an example of parallel processing, which is something that I use a lot in mastering, particularly if I don't have access to the multitracks or if there aren't any. You can find another good example of parallel processing performing miracles here. Check this video out next. Until next time, keep making music. Cheers.